Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and yesterday in the Q&A I covered my topic about knee wraps, and then some other people had asked, what about knee sleeves? We know your take on knee wraps, so what about knee sleeves? Because I compete in a federation that counts sleeves and wraps the same, I don't really differentiate between the two for the most part, particularly some of the really amazing SBDs out there. Sleeves, just like knee wraps, are another piece of kit that allows you to boost performance by mechanical leverage, by storing energy inside of that device rather than your muscle tissue. Then it lets you lift the weight more easily through the hardest part of the range of motion, because again, you've compressed energy into another object that can then store that energy and release it like a spring. And yeah, that's what knee sleeves and knee wraps essentially do. And people who say, oh, they can't add that much, you'd be amazed how much they could add. Even good knee sleeves, and people can argue about this all day long, but people can size the really good SBDs and stuff who are getting 50 or more pounds out of their squat on them. Knee wraps, people can get up to 100 pounds out of them. And I've heard some claims with the SBDs, if you get them tight enough, some people might be getting even more than 50 pounds. It really varies a lot. And anyone who claims they're not getting any out of these things, they're full of shit and they don't know basic physics. And they can't look at basic leverages if they say that they're not, because it's impossible not to get carryover out of them. Now, that being said, since we know that that's the purpose of these devices, anyone who's using the excuse of, well, I'm using them to reduce injury prevention or whatever all this nonsense is, look, that is also complete bullshit. Knee wraps actually do damage your knees over time. They're not something you should use for safety purposes. They will actually hurt you over time. So when you see people using them for things like leg presses and hack squats and this other stuff, those are the people who in a few years are going to be complaining about their knees hurt, and they're going to blame weightlifting when it's actually the stupid ass knee sleeves that did it, not the weightlifting. Now, as far as the knee sleeves go instead of the wraps, the same thing. There isn't evidence yet showing that knee sleeves can injure you like knee wraps can. However, it hasn't been studied close enough, and there is certainly no evidence or reason to think at all that they do anything to prevent injuries. So again, the only purpose in using them is to lift more weight through the use of a mechanical object. And so for people who argue, well, why don't you just overload? It could be useful for overload at the top. Well, that's why we have chains and things. It's easier. Most gyms, serious gyms, if you're hardcore enough about your training that you think you need accommodating resistance to where you overload certain parts like the top of the lift more than the others with a heavier weight, if you're that hardcore, you're probably already at a hardcore gym that has chains and things already. Just use the chains. And for God's sake, if you're using wraps or sleeves, don't claim that you lift that weight raw, because you don't lift it raw. You're lifting it with the aid of an external device. And remember, guys, the whole purpose of these devices is not to make things safer or prevent injuries, because they don't do that. There's no reason to think they do that. They are there purely to give you mechanical leverage to lift more weight through the help of an external object. And remember, if you're using them, don't claim that your lifts are raw, because they aren't. So in short, if you do not compete in a sport with a federation that allows the use of these devices, there's probably no logical reason for any of you to actually own them. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.